this week, I think our whole goal is to just not have it be a 2-hour podcast because, I mean, we had a
Yeah.
lot to catch up with last week, but this week, I think that's a safe goal. Yes?
Yeah. No, I mean, we definitely still have a lot to talk about this week, but I
Yeah.
think we can keep it to about an hour.
Maybe?
Oh,
I don't know.
maybe.
We'll figure it out.
Maybe.
But are you good, sir?
I'm good.
All right. If you're good, I'm good. I'll use that as part of the intro then, which means I can now say, welcome. Welcome on in, folks, to the Snap Back podcast where you snap and we snap back. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, and once again, as always, joined with my chapeaued little friend, Default Dan. Good morning. How are you, Mr. Vacation Man?
Man, it's been crazy. We went on vacation over the weekend through the first of the week. A lot of stuff, but trying to catch up with the normal job, which is always crazy after being gone 3 working days.
No one does big boy jobs. Come on. You don't have a big boy job. You just play games for a living. Come on. You want it. I know.
I wish I could be that content creator that literally just does this 24/7, but no, we got to pay the bills, but at the same time, love doing it. Love talking with you. Love hanging out and streaming, all that good stuff. So
yeah, because it's been a hell of a week. We didn't have a recording earlier in the week, which means that from our last recording, the entire landscape of the economy of this game is officially different.
Absolutely.
And we have new cards. And we have what we thought we knew not be everything we thought we knew. So we've got to talk about, things like Jean Grey, who's now into the game. We've got the spotlight caches officially live. Little changes that surprised us as well that got put in with this patch, and we'll talk about the shop, for example, as well as just overall the quick little updates, because obviously those have been out for a little while now, but there's a couple worth noting, especially looking at the long-term gameplay of what's probably going to end up happening. And then, of course, just a fun deck of the week where we have some disagreements, which is always what makes it fun. So, first off, did you actually get Jean Grey?
I did.
I think that's the bigger question.
I did. Okay. So we'll talk about spotlight caches in a little bit specifically around it, but I did pick up Jean Grey, through those. But I don't know, man. Like I think we all thought she was going to be like this crazy awesome card, and we'll get into kind of our opinions around her as we go through. And I think that she felt super powerful when she was bugged, but now that she's not bugged, I don't know. I mean, she's not bad, but I don't think she's as good as everybody really wanted her to be.
I just don't think we've found the right deck yet with her. Yeah. So for those who haven't seen or heard, there was this awful, crazy, broken, busted combo with Goose. And it was, I mean, call it what it is. It was literally cheating. Yeah. You could lock out your opponent. And it was a glitch. It was a bug. It was there for about 24 hours. And some people made it to infinite with it because they were just literally breaking their opponents. And, it's kind of like it was with Kitty Pryde in that sense, where Kitty Pryde was, when she first released into the game, so broken that she was literally crashing people's games. Thankfully, this is not to that. It wasn't to that level. It was just, oh, you literally can't play anything. Got it. Okay. That's just not fair.
And if you're not familiar with the combo, essentially Jean Grey being a 3/3 who's released, her ongoing says your first card must be played here. So think of kind of a reverse Morag. You have to play there first before you can play anywhere else. And if you throw down Goose, so Goose on 2, Jean on 3, Goose says you can't play anything here that's over 3. So 4, 5, 6 can't be played here. So what was happening was Goose would come down, Jean would come down, and if you didn't have anything that was 1, 2, or 3, you could not play because there's some parentheses on Jean Grey that says if possible, and if possible was not working. So you literally got locked out on turn 3 or 4, because if you think of like the high Evo decks, all they have is Thor, Lockjaw, or one of the 0 cost cards. So if you got stuck with all your big cards, you weren't doing anything for the whole game.
This is true.
So it was a pretty pretty bad bug. And again, I would agree with you. If you knew and you were intentionally doing it, I mean, it was cheating. I know it's in the game and
Yeah.
there's going to be arguments of, well, it's there so I can use it. But this is much more than just a simple bug. And I do like that Second Dinner like jumped on it pretty quick to get that fixed.
Yeah.
Or if that would have stuck around for like a week or two, I mean, Conquest would have been miserable. Ladder would have been miserable, but it was just a couple days.
Not even. It was less than 24
Yeah.
hours. They had or right around 24 hours, they had the update quick background patch in there implemented for Jean Grey. We didn't have to re-download the game, thank goodness, which would have probably caused a compensation issue for people to get a second update. Legitimately, like
I
they
have to
were
push a
on
button. I
it.
need gold. I need to push.
Exactly.
I don't know. Compensation is another one of those like rough spots for me because it's been in every mobile game. But
we'll get to compensation in a second because there's a fun thing with that one. But in regards to Jean Grey first, I think right now there isn't the broken combo yet.
Yeah.
We are still identifying what it is. I have a core, I got her late. I only got her briefly yesterday. So I got to play with her for like an hour or two. And I truly believe that the broken combo rests in Jean Grey plus Wave. And I just have to figure out the rest of the deck because I feel like that's the route to go with Lockdown and making something of that nature happen where you can secure the other two lanes or secure one lane with a guaranteed win into the third lane now because of Jean Grey and Wave. Like, I think there's something there specifically. What it is, I don't know. But I think there's something there specifically.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you with, being able to lock people down, making sure they're playing in a certain spot. It was the reason why Arrow back in the day was so good. Didn't matter where you played, it all was going to Arrow's lane. But I don't know. I mean, right now, and I think right now that the thing that I'm struggling with Jean Grey right now is the fact that bounce is just everywhere. I mean, we'll talk about some of the card changes a little bit later in the podcast, but essentially bounce is 50% of the meta, at this point. And when you figure every other game, and even like I played a Surfer deck this morning as I was getting ready, and Conquest that literally had Kitty Pryde. So I knew they were playing Jean in their deck because that's the answer to Jean right now. And the fact that Kitty's in so many decks, it just makes it to where it's like, she's really strong, but because of the way the meta is right now, she doesn't feel as strong as she could. So I definitely agree with you. I think we haven't found the perfect deck. Right now, we're just slotting her into Surfer because she's a 3 or trying to throw her in some kind of lockdown deck, but haven't quite figured out what that is because it does affect both players. It's not just a one-sided thing. If it was a one-sided thing, she may be too OP, but I do feel like if it was a one-sided thing, then maybe that's where I could be like, okay, this card is amazing and great. But because it's a two-sided thing, which I do think is more fair, it makes it harder because you also have to build around the fact that your first card, unless you have Brood or unless you have somebody that's going to fill that lane really quickly, you're also playing in that lane.
Yeah, I was trying to build something that used like, here, keep playing into this lane. Oh, I'm just going to keep ruining this entire lane. Things like Negasonic Teenage Warhead with Jean Grey. Yeah. That's a fun combo to screw up their turn 5, which is such a nice key setup turn.
Yeah, but you also kill your person. Like I wish Negasonic didn't die. Like take away 2 points, but if she didn't die, because theoretically, as a mutant, she doesn't kill herself to do it. She blows up and she's fine. So like maybe even if she blows up and she gets -3, would be more on par with what she is. But I think right now that's my problem with her is, yes, I'm killing your card, but I'm losing a card compared to Shang-Chi, Spider-Man 2099, all these other cards that can kill a card, but you still get to keep your card. So I think if they changed her and maybe did something like that, like minus whatever when she does it, but she still has 3 power, 2 power, I think she'd be way more playable.
Just remember, you can bring her back.
I know with Phoenix,
and then it works. But
Then
that
they
exactly
play
comes back
again
with
and you
Phoenix.
lose her again.
But not necessarily, because the curve still works, because then you could still play your Kitty Pride on turn 6 also. Bounce
Yeah.
into there and then Phoenix it in one of the other lanes. So
I know.
there's these are the things I've been trying to figure out, because I feel like there is a deck. There is something with Jean Grey. I don't think she's a bad card,
Yeah.
but all of we can't even go with the data that's out there on any location on trying to figure out, is Jean Grey good, because all the data is going to say yes, because
Yeah.
she was busted. And until we get the next OTA patch a week later, and then we start looking at people playing with Jean Grey again, then we can probably say, here's the true data in new version of Jean Grey. And
Yeah.
we'll go from there to see if she's actually, does she have something? Because right now I just don't think she does. She's just,
Yeah.
we're navigating the world of Jean Grey.
Yeah.
And on the
I
journey,
I will say
it's
that
fun, but meh.
yeah. I'd say
Just meh. That's all.
the other pieces, we do have Echo coming out next week. And Echo
Mm-hmm.
could be a good card with her. So Jean Grey down first, Echo second. If they don't have Kitty, you also have the ability of potentially ruining their ongoing cards as they're having to play into it. So I don't know if that's really a thing at the moment, but I do think that there will be, like you mentioned, some of these cards that we start to figure out, like, oh, this is really good paired on that space with Jean Grey. Maybe it's Cosmo after Jean Grey. Maybe it's Echo. Maybe it's something like that, to where you're able to play into her. And again, Echo's a cheap cost card, so you're able to play into her and something else. And they're not doing well throwing cards into Jean Grey. So I don't know. It'll be fun just to see what kind of comes out of there with her. But kind of going off of that real quick, the question I have for you is, did you get her in the Spotlight caches, or did you just pay the tokens?
Oh, my ass is not stupid. I waited. Like, I have a need to have a full collection to a certain degree, but my economy and logic kicks in way before my ego. So yeah, I waited.
So
I straight outright waited.
So speaking of your logic, I did want to kind of pick your brain on one thing. So first to state, I'm sure everybody at this point knows what the Spotlight caches are, but if you don't, for some reason you haven't updated your app or something like that, on the new collection level, you essentially every 10 levels, you're going to get a Spotlight cache. When you open them, you're going to get one of 4 possibilities. So you're either going to get Jean Grey. If you own Jean Grey, you're going to get the variant instead. Same thing goes for Null, Living Tribunal, and then this mystery card that's over here. So again, if you have any of these cards, you're going to get their Spotlight variants. But then this last one, that's a potential Series 4 or 5 card. I know some of your logic stated you were going to wait till next week for Jean, but then we found out that 4 or 5 card doesn't guarantee a 4 or 5 card that you don't have. You may be getting a card that you do have that just gets converted to a random variant. What's your thoughts around that, and why? That's my question. Why? Why would they do this?
All right. So to put it lightly, because I have 2 answers for you. I have the personal answer and I have the scope of the big game answer, right? Personal answer is that just sucks. That would have been such a great way to make sure, as I look at the economy and I do the math over the next couple of weeks, is okay, I could save my Spotlight caches for the entire month. I can wait on the first Series 5 character, do the thing on, use all 4 Spotlights on the second Spotlight character. That way I get the first and the second for the same 4 caches, and then I would use my tokens to get the Series 4 characters at the end of the month. That was my strategy. And probably exactly why they don't have that implemented, which sucks, personally. In regards to the scope of the game and the health of it that way, now we're talking. Now that's like, okay, this is exactly why you don't have that, because now it's literally a random Series 4 or 5 card that
Yep.
you may or may not have. And if you don't get it, you get a random variant,
Yeah.
which kind of sucks. It should be a random variant of a Series 4 or 5 card personally, but
Yeah.
what do I know? There's only so many of those, I guess, to go around. But
Better. I mean, like, this
or at
would be
least a super
bad.
rare.
Right. This would be bad. It's like, it should be a super rare. I almost like beg the argument that it should be an ultimate variant. I know that there's not that many, that there's not.
No
Well,
way.
here's the thing. They got to rework ultimate variants. Nobody, we'll talk about economy in a little bit with shop changes and things like that, but nobody's going to spend 5K tokens anymore on those variants. Like, if you are the biggest. I mean, you're the whale, right? You're
Right.
Myth, you're STG, these guys, because at this point, with the way economy went, like that's like 5 months of saving of tokens to buy a variant. But I don't know, like either that, or I could see potentially it'd be like 6 months from now. But like I could also see that being a potential, like, oh, it's just another spotlight variant that randomly pops up that you didn't get. So like me, I don't really care about variants. I'm gonna be honest. Like I love all the Dan hit variants. So September, whatever, when we get Jeff, I'll get him. But the rest of them, like if I get them, I get them. But once I get the main card in the spotlight, I'm done opening for that week. And so it would be nice eventually to say, okay, well maybe because you didn't get Gene, you can maybe open Gene. Like you can open Gene's spotlight variant later in that slot. But yeah, right now the 4-5 random card you may have, like it feels bad. And to your point, I get it in a way. Like if I was a player that was just now Series 3 complete, right? I just started and things like that. I could see this being a problem because now every 10 collector levels, I get a Series 4 or 5 card. It doesn't matter what it is because I don't have Null, I don't have Living Tribunal, Jean Grey, and this new card. So like I could see that building collections too fast because already, I mean, if we look at like the good, right? Because I want to go back to the good for a second. Spotlights are a good thing in my opinion. I mean, what are your thoughts around them? Because I just come back to the fact that I've never opened a Series 5. I never will, like, because I don't count this as opening a Series 5. So I opened over 700 caches, and I could find you the exact number, but over 700, never opened a Series 5 card. A Series 4 card was 1 in 40. So you had to open 40 caches in order to get one.
Yep.
And now we're in a world where I'm guaranteed in 40 caches, I'm guaranteed to get a Series 4 or 5, whatever the new card is for the week. I'm also, if I don't have the cards, which I'm collecting complete, so it's a little differently, but I'm also guaranteed another 2, 4, or 5 if I'm not collection complete, right? And I don't have the 2 cards. So like now we're looking at a minimum, the average player is going to get 2 Series 4 or 5 cards in 40 caches. Whereas
per month.
Yeah. Whereas no, per week. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like
well,
that's,
I mean, well, you also have to then have 40 caches worth of climbing in a week, which is not the commonality.
I'm just saying you have the ability.
Way to whale yourself publicly, good sir.
You have the ability. You have the ability to get that. And that's what
everybody
I'm saying.
has the ability. Just do you have the budget? Okay.
Right. But like prior to caches, I would have been at a minimum, I would have been getting one, like at a minimum, it's 1 every 40 caches. Whereas now you have the potential of 3+ a week. Right. And so again, I get it. The average player, you're only going to have like 1 cache, maybe 2 caches a week. So you need to be very aware. Do I want Gene? Do I want Echo? Like pick it for the month, which one you want to go after to make sure you have your caches.
I think, and what's interesting too, is that all of the information that we've all put out there, my own information included, when trying to assess the spotlight cache situation, because of the Series 4 and 5 random card change, knowing that it can pull from any Series 4 and 5 card, including ones you already have, that's going to skew all of the numbers and only further confirms how right I was. And I hate to put it out there that way, but I'm sorry, I will. I called it X, Y, and Z days, weeks, months ago, whatever it was, when I put out the Spotlight on Spotlight Caches routine. And I'm going to play my own ego for a second here intentionally, where I flat out said the goal of Second Dinner is to make sure that you don't have a full collection.
Yeah.
And I mean that intentionally. It is meant to keep you from having that up to a certain free to play point, right? This
Yeah.
system, now knowing that the Series 4 and 5 card will not automatically default to a card that you do not have, which is not something that was properly articulated in
Yeah.
any nomenclature prior. Everyone, all of us, read it as X, Y, and Z. And I even went back into the announcement and reread it 3 times before I finally saw how they announced it, and they worded it so particularly that they never, never actually lied or misled us in any way. In the spot, I'm going to read it verbatim here. In the Spotlight Cash announcement, they specifically stated that with the 3 cards, it says each week, and I quote, each week, 3 different Series 4 and 5 cards will be featured, including the new released card that week. When you open a Spotlight Cash, you're guaranteed to open one of those 3 cards or a random Series 4 and 5 card. Then the following sentence is where that's where they got away with it, which is if you already own one of the featured cards. That's how they slipped it very carefully to make sure that it says it's different. It's the 3 featured and the 1 random S4, S5, talking about the what it defaults to.
Yeah.
And if you go take a look for any of the listeners and viewers, go actually look at the announcement. They separate the 3 cards versus the S4 and 5, talking about how the default system's going to work. And even in our question and answers, we didn't get it properly articulated again. And it's so frustrating because I want to be able to say to, to my free to play community, let me make this very clear. Still, okay, still, the system is in your benefit. It's just less in your benefit than we may have originally thought, and confirms the idea that you have to remember that this, I even said it last night on stream, this is not a pay to win game. This is still a game where strategy supersedes everything. I mean, we just had someone win with like a, what was it, like 2,000 or 3,000 collection level because they had some Series 3 cards. They don't have Jeff the Babyland Shark and don't have this and don't have this. And, they maneuvered their way around, and strategy supersedes collection more often than, once you're in Series 3, more often than not, strategy supersedes collection. And now with this new system where Series 3 can start getting the new cards right away, literally, so everything is meta relevant immediately if people choose to invest into using their spotlights here or next week or the week after and get, certain collection of the cards, as we see on the, what we have here on the YouTube side, all of the spotlights that are showcased for the next 2 months, because Snap.fan found awesome data, which was so fun to work with. I'm not going to lie. There are some core weeks to be able to really say, okay, I want to be this kind of competitive, or I'm really missing this specific key card.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can get Iron Lad next week for a lot of people who didn't get it the first week out is huge.
But you can also get Kang. I mean, like, they're also giving us big bats.
Let's not celebrate that though. Let's not celebrate you can get Kang though. Come on, really?
Well, but here's the thing. It's not necessarily about Kang. It's just the fact that Kang is there, which means Galactus is going to be there, because I think he's there at some point, right? Like, we had Dark Hawk in there.
Season pass weeks. Yeah.
We got Galactus.
The season pass week for Galactus, which I love. In the same week, they put Galactus and Nimrod.
Right.
In the season pass release week for next month on August 8th, Galactus and Nimrod and Spider-Ham are all slated to be there in the same week. Yeah, that's like a stellar week.
Yeah. So but it's just one of those things where, like, it's not like they're just limiting to say, like, all right, well, we're just going to give you the meh cards, right? We're going to give you those cards
Yeah.
that like you kind of want, but you don't really want. Like,
Here's a
I mean,
snow guard.
right. They're putting in good cards into this. They're putting in great variants. So if you already have these cards, but yeah, I would go back to your statement about like the free to play. I think the key is understanding if you're free to play, don't just open one cache. You really need to open two a week, not a week, but like whenever you're going to do it, you need to open two, because what's going to feel really bad is if you're like, all right, I have my one this week, and you open that random 4 or 5, you get the card you already have, and then you don't have another one to open. So you don't get the guaranteed card you don't have, right? Like, I think that's going to be the key when it comes to being free to play, being, semi spender, whatever it is, because like even myself, I have 5 caches right now waiting for next week. I got Gene on the second one. I opened Null on the first one, opened Gene on the second one. I'm done. Next week, I'll do the same thing. Once I hit the card, I'll be done. The next 2 weeks, like we talked about, if you're a slight spender or you're free to play and you have tokens, use your tokens that week. So it gives you a buffer week, because they're going to be series 4. They're 3,000 tokens, right? So gives you a buffer week to get some more caches banked away for your future one. So I think that it's key, like you mentioned, go over to Snap.fan, read the article, look at what's coming over the next, month, the next month in August, and even, did you guys have even into September? Even into September.
The first week.
Right. Yeah. With Jeff. So like, look at those, see if there's a week that you're like, oh man, I really want Null. I really want Jeff. I really want that variant, because it may even just be like, that's your variant style. Like I mentioned, I get all the Dan hips. So I'm definitely going to I may have to open all 4, but I'm definitely going to get Jeff that week. So like there are certain things that you want to make sure that you're kind of banking on, and you're saving up, so that you're not just doing one a week and getting shafted potentially with that series 4 or 5 card, or even,
Fair.
maybe 2 of the cards you have and 1 you don't. You may open 2 and hit those 2 cards you have. So like, just kind of keep that in mind if you're one of those kind of free to play or smaller spenders that don't have the abundance of tokens and things like that sitting around. So
yeah, I will, as we look at the end of the spotlights here, the way that the system is set up with getting the 3 spotlights featured in the random series 4 and 5 card, I know it's the right move for the game. As frustrating as it is, because I thought we could game the system, which is exactly why it's the right move for the game, because they're basically saying you can't game us, and makes total sense. It doesn't mean I personally like it, but it makes total sense. And I'd like to think that I'm mature enough to understand that, but it's hysterical how many people are not mature enough and will instead just whine about it, not realizing what they're actually trying to do here, which is intentionally tell people, hey, look, if you want a full you want to complete the collection, just complete series 3. Everything else is a perk and then priority strategy. You're going to get about 75% of the series 4 and 5 cards for free, nonstop, all the time, which means you're going to still be at about a 95% completion rate, free to play. That's a pretty damn good collection. And to know that a free to play player can play this game and get 95% of the cards at all times, I think that's still a good system.
Yeah. And speaking of gaming the system, don't try to game the system, because Tucker has a list.
I know.
If you wanted
it's great.
Double
it's
dip.
Great.
And I do want to talk about that just very briefly, just a quick blurb about it, right? So if you guys don't know, right, because it's gone out there, the old double dip, and I know there was a lot of streamers doing it. I'm not going to call any specific person out or anything like that, because here's the thing, it was smart in a way of doing it because of the new economy changes. So this kind of also flows right into shop changes and things like that. But
it's past enough. We can tell what it was. Like it's past, the time.
Yeah. So what it was is, on the first day, as people updated their app, they realized, hey, all the spotlight caches are on the zeros. So they're on the right side of the collection level, and anything that ends in a 0 is your spotlight cache. And it was the same for everybody because it was just programmatically done to essentially say go from 0 and every 10. Every 10 is a spotlight cache, right? Like so when people found that out, they were not updating, opening every cache but those, and then updating. And then that way all the ones that were not opened are the spotlight caches. And the reason why they did that was the economy, because when we think about the ones that you're opening, we don't have gold anymore. The tokens are now 50 or 100. We don't have the 600 tokens like we had before. We lost, even the credits are like way less than you would have got before, but we're getting more variants. So you've mentioned it before, Guess, like Second Dinner looks at your collection as more than just playable cards. It's variants, it's avatars, it's titles, it's everything in the game. And so you have a higher rate of getting that. And for, in-game people, so people that have full collections and things like that, this is an okay thing in the fact that I get more variants, but it's definitely messing with the economy because we have less tokens, no gold for the new shop stuff. Like it was weird. It was weird, but yeah. So Tucker has a list of everybody who did it. He's keeping up with it.
And it was really funny watching how many people were like, hey, so if those people that did it, will they be like punished, or will everybody else be like compensated? And I don't know why I hear it in that voice, but I do. And
I mean, they push their glasses up on their nose. And
it's hysterical to me because Second Dinner knew this was a possibility. And there's so much of it that they can control. And there's so much of it that they chose not to do. And I say that intentionally, chose not to do, because they were aware of how the system was rolling out. And there's only so much of it that they could have controlled.
Yeah.
The amount of, and here's the thing though, that because it relates into, the shop changes as well. There are only so many people that manipulated or gamed the system to a degree that were able to take advantage of this. And the percentage of people who did so was minuscule. However, if you're someone who's online ingesting content right like this, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Discord, whether it's whatever, you saw people talking about it, or on Twitch, you saw people advertising it, but still the percentage of people who did it is minuscule. So sure, Tucker might be able to let everyone know, hey, I'm just going to remove 1 gold to let you know that I know that you did this, which is his list that he's referring to.
I wouldn't have even noticed, but like,
I think he would have, because it never ended in a 0 anymore. Yeah, I would have noticed.
And
it just would have been annoying.
So.
It would have been annoying more than anything else, just, aesthetically. But, and I'm glad that he didn't, just because my OCD did freak out on that I'm always 1 short. But look, they knew and they chose not to. It's kind of like how with the shop changes, they had the glitch that happened with the ultimate variant Venom. And for those who don't know what happened.
By the way, before you do that, I did not do this double dip. And I'll tell you why. Because I was just too excited to update the game. About the spotlight caches. I didn't even know that was a thing until after the fact.
You go ahead and stand on your proud hill of accident, and I'll just stand here with my 1 less gold. And
but yes, going back, Venom, going back to another bug that happened with the rollout. Was
random bug.
Was this random card?
Yeah, it was just the ultimate variant of Venom. Because if you didn't see, there was an update to the shop, and there's more slots now, including a premium mystery variant slot, which is always there. And which I kind of like that they added that one. That was a little slip in there that they never told anybody about. They just added it, which I enjoyed. You spend the 800 gold and you're guaranteed to not get a pixel, versus 700 gold, and it could be anything.
But what about all those pixel collectors? And they're going, wait a minute, pixels are the best, and I can't get them in this.
Well,
I mean, I agree.
Luckily, that's a minuscule pool of people too. But in this new version of the shop, A
Yeah.
Venom dropped that was an ultimate Venom, and it was lowered. They lowered its rarity for some reason accidentally in the process, and
Yeah.
it dropped to a super rare. And it did appear in some people's shops, and they were able to purchase this what was an ultimate Venom for 1,200 gold.
Yeah.
And it was posted up, and same thing. People who are on social medias that follow content for the game saw it and were like, wait a minute, how the hell is this possible? This is insane. This is doing this. This is doing this. And people were freaking out, yada, yada. And then afterwards, we got confirmation from the devs that, listen, yes, this did happen. It was a glitch and we did fix it. However, out of the scope of people who saw it, which was 0.24% of gamers,
Was it
that's
even
how
that
many
high?
people actually, yeah, 0.24%. Out
I
of
thought it
all
was.
of that, total was 150 people that actually, out of the entire millions of people who play this game, 150 people actually took advantage of it and got the ultimate variant version. And the
No, it was
conversation in the creator group,
0.04%. That's what I was saying.
excuse me,
It wasn't even as high as you were
0.04.
saying it was.
Yeah, it was minuscule. 150 people actually got this ultimate version of Venom for 1,200 gold.
Yeah.
And in the creator group, it was straight outright said, okay, I can live with that. I chose to spend 5,000 gold for this absolutely sick
Tokens.
Venom variant. Sorry, token, excuse me.
Yeah.
5,000, tokens for the sick Venom variant, but it was just a glitch. Even though
Right.
there is other glitches with the shop, like the fact that everybody's shop is the
The
same.
same.
Like
The same.
that first day, everybody was like, "Hey, ooh, we all have. Let's see, the Dan Hip Odin, the Dan Hip
I think
this
if
version, the baseball Misty Knight, this
I
version."
think as
Like,
long as you had all the cards, you had the exact same shop. So like our shops
yeah,
are different by one card, but that was because you didn't have Gene at the time.
correct.
But yes, it was pretty crazy. So everybody's
Yeah,
shop looked the exact same. It was really weird. Even today's shop looks very similar. Not the exact based on a
yeah,
couple of shops I've seen, but I'll 60% the same. Um,
yeah. But
but
they
it's
at
because
least
they're
acknowledged it
prioritizing.
again.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that comes down to they're prioritizing the brand new variants that they literally flooded the game with.
yeah. My God, like we posted them up on Snap.fan, all of the variants that they uploaded into the game,
Yeah,
and holy crap, there's a lot of them. Like
yeah.
a lot of them. Um,
I,
it's always been fun, I should say, to kind of refer back to it. It's always been fun on Twitter following the guys like STG and 16 who used to get
yeah,
every
like
single variant
they'd have
every
like
single
one a
day to
day.
see like what the new one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd have like one or two a day of, oh, these are the new ones that dropped in the game, and you look in their post and to see, which ones they have. That's always been cool.
yeah,
But now everybody's shop is going to prioritize seeing those variants, which is something that they're tweaking. Okay, let's make
yeah.
that clear too. They've already said that, oh, you know what? Maybe we went a little too aggressive on this. Maybe it's a little too much on that. Um, just so you know, for those who haven't seen the brand new feature on Snap.fan, did you know that if you go to all of the new cards in that big giant article from the patch notes and all of those new variants that dropped in the game, every variant you can see which day it's releasing and being publicly available officially. So if you choose like the Pixel Kazar, for example, and you read into it, you'll see a release date to know if it's actually going to be released this month or not.
Yeah.
So, for example, let me find one here. Like, for example, I'm looking at the Dan Hip Omega Red release date, July 18th. So that one's coming out this week. So you can actually see now when these will pop into the game and they'll start to become available. So if you are a collector that likes to target farm, you have a good chance at having your target card appearing now in your shop because of the prioritization.
Hmm.
You now have a chance to actually specifically get the one that you want on the day you want because of the double balance of, well, we can now see that data so we can put it out to the world
Yeah.
with the idea that Second Dinner is prioritizing the newer variants to push into the shop on their release. So
Yeah.
I like this combination because variant people are going to be very happy about that.
I I do and I don't. Like I'm liking that I'm getting so here's the rub for me. Like when it comes to the Dan Hip, variants, it's literally I only collect those in the Venomized variants. And even the Venomized I've kind of pulled back a little bit and just focus on the Dan Hip ones. But I'm loving the fact that I'm getting them every day. So the last 2 days I've had two. And that's huge considering I'll go like a month without seeing one. But I know that there's at least 20 or 30 that I don't have. Like theoretically there's 50 something, but I don't think they're actually all in the game yet. But I know there's 20 or 30. And so my problem is that Yondu that I want, that Spider Ham that I want, these that have already come through with this prioritization. I'm worried that and this is not just for me, right? I'm talking about the other people that have seen a variant that are like, I really want that Venomized Hella or whatever it may be. And it's literally now going to take that much longer potentially to flow back in because we are getting presented with all the new ones. Now they are going to tweak it like you mentioned. So I'll be interested to see what that looks like, but I am worried that there's a few of those Dan Hips that I may not see for a while. So this is my suggestion of second dinners, listening to the podcast and hanging out. Please just, now that we have like all these slots, you have that random premium variant, which is fine. Down in the bottom right, like make one or two of those slots, prioritize your top 1 and 2 variants that you purchase, not that you have, because that'll always be Pixel, the ones that you purchase, and just have those kind of flow in. So you're always guaranteed, and maybe you buy it, maybe you don't, but it's the style of variant that you've purchased the most. And I know that could be skewed with people who just buy like random variants that they like and things like that. But maybe, how many AI websites do we have out there? You can use some AI to figure out like which one would you like based on the ones that you've purchased. Like, I don't know. I would love to get some kind of featured variant that you may like. And here's the thing. It's only benefiting them. If you put a Dan Hip in there every day, I'm getting it. So I don't know why they wouldn't want to do something like that.
Yeah, it's probably just resources. It's on the back burner of things that they want to do.
It's the money making.
Because I know it's a part of the money making, but they're getting your money because you have a personal affinity on specific variants, as we can tell from your background on the visuals here. But the other shop change I think that is worth noting outside of the increased amount of shop items. I'll do one tiny one and one obvious one. The tiny one is they got rid of the small converter. They got rid of the 120 gold for 150 credits conversion. That's gone. Now it's ramped up. So now instead, if I remember correctly, it's still the one that was above it, which was the 400 to 500. And now there's a new one, which is the 1200 gold into 1500 credits. So the small one's gone. It's not a huge loss, but just something to note that they got rid of it. I'm not sure how detrimental or big or bad it was, but they did get rid of it.
I think the only people, and this is a blanket statement, so it's probably not true, but I'm still going to say it. I think mostly the only people that were ever buying the gold for credits anyway were buying those top two. Like I think about like when I was building my collection and we didn't have a real resource for gold, right? Like you could buy a variant, but again, I still stand on this thing of if you're free to play, don't ever buy a variant. Use your gold for some bundle that comes out. So like when I was building my stuff, all my gold was being sunk into the best conversions for the gold, which were the top ones. So I definitely think it's one of those things where they probably see that too. Super Tech God, 617, these guys who have to split these cards and get the caches and things like that, they need these bigger conversion rates for gold to credit so that they can split so many cards. And I think
but this isn't done for them though. Let's be clear.
I know it's not just for them, but I'm just saying like in general, like if you think about spotlight caches and the fact that if you want 3 a week, 4 a week, right? And you're in that world. Or even if you just want 8 a month or whatever, you're splitting a lot of cards. So I think that was the reason. It's to give you the ability to dump a bunch of gold to get a bunch of credits, because prior to that it was 500, and I remember hitting the daily, because you can only get so many a week. For a while there was only so many a day. Then it was this weird like carryover. If you didn't buy some yesterday, they carried over to today. And so I think at this point it's just like, hey, they understand there really should not be a gate on that, and this is kind of their little, all right, we'll open the gate a little bit more. We'll give you a bigger bundle to do that. So I don't know. It's fine. It's a fine change. It's like you said, something to note, and I think it's a good change overall. But unless you were for some reason the one that was just like, I just want this one little upgrade, so I just want to buy the cheapest one.
Yeah, I mean, not a huge change, but one just worth noting. The bigger change is the new daily offer for tokens and a premium mystery variant tracker, which is at the top of the collection.
Yeah.
And for those who haven't seen, it's because you're probably probably under collection level 1000. Let's make that clear, that if you're over collection level 1000, you get a new piece into your shop, which says the daily rotation of cosmetics and variants for your cards in your collection. Blank out of 10 daily offer purchases earn blank. And it's a little tracker of 10 tidbits that over this course, starting from the beginning of this month is when the tracker officially started. So if you updated the game and it showed that you already had a couple of ticks on there, that's why. That as you progress on through, if you get X amount of things from the shop, I called it the equivalent of like a coffee, buy 10 coffees, get one free type membership thing, where it was, okay, here, you got 10 of these. Here, we're going to throw you an extra premium mystery variant as a thank you. And here's 2,000 collector's tokens as well. So I liked that. What's also cool for the whales, it's not just double whaling, double dipping. It's you can only get them once a week.
Yeah.
So I like that too. So it's just enough of a, here, you can get a free extra premium variant if you spent, the equivalent of 7,000 gold this week. If you got all just rares exclusively, here, we're going to throw you 2,000 tokens as a thank you and an extra premium mystery variant. I think that that's a nice little, tip of the hat, that just a way that Second Dinner can incentivize, hey, look, if you happen to get a few of them, now it's, going to pay off. You're also going to get this. Of course, you have a full whaleness right now where it says coming soon, because you've already gotten the entire quantity for the week, though.
Well, the weird thing was, and there was really no like explanation. When I opened this, mine was full. Mine was full, and I know I had bought a couple variants, but I had not. I'm pretty sure I didn't.
Beginning of the month, I said.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Yeah, but I mean, the beginning of the month was like a week. I hadn't bought.
It's the 14th, bro.
What?
This was 12 days worth of variants.
Right. So it's 12 days. I don't think I've bought 10 variants in 12 days.
Are you just saying this so that way Mrs. Dan doesn't get mad at you when she listens to the podcast later?
I'm being serious. Like literally the only variants I buy are Dan Hips. And I know prior to getting 2 a day, which is why you see these 4 right here. Like I wasn't getting a Dan Hip every day. There was a couple. It's a project I'm working on. There was a couple pixels I picked up, but it was maybe 3 or 4. So unless I'm not reading something, I'm not thinking about something right. Like, so I don't know why mine was full.
Yeah. So apparently there is a counting glitch. Also in regards to it, for example, the $4.99 premium mystery variant pack.
Yeah.
That did associate to the counter, because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And then I heard that there was another one that was also counting for some reason. I don't know what it is though. But there was another one that was counting towards it too. So it could have been a tally of that.
Right. It could have been something like that because we did have a couple packs that had like 3 cards in them and things like that. So I'm just
It
saying
wasn't
in
packs. I know
okay.
that for a fact. The packs did not count.
So I'm just saying in general, it maybe looks like I wailed, but I literally just had it full right when I opened this up, and I was like, sure. And again, it was kind of strange because I know a lot of people open it and they have 1 or they'd have 3 or it would be full. There was a few people that were full, but nobody could
Gotcha.
really pinpoint like why. And so
Yeah.
that was the curiosity. Now, again, I like this. It's not a go do this so you can win more, right? You get tokens because you know you're paying for them. The rate of tokens to gold you must spend is terrible. But if you're already doing it, you're already buying variants, you're already doing things like that, it's just a like you said, it's just a free coffee. It's just a hey, thank you for doing this. Here you go. And so I really do like the mechanic, and it does carry over from week to week. So it, you know, when we all first read this, or at least I know I did, and a few others, like we were like, oh man, like at the end of the week, this is gonna go away, right? Like it's a you have to buy it this week, but it's not. This is a continuative counter to where every week you buy a couple, whatever, and then eventually you get it, and you don't have to worry about it like going away, but you can see right there with the 3 days, whatever. I can't get another one until the 3 days. So I don't know.
Yeah. Because
I like it.
I know you have it up as a picture right now, but in
Yeah.
the question mark that is above it, it does specifically state that after making 10 purchases in the shop, you can claim a bonus reward up to once per week.
Yeah.
So that's how
Yeah.
that tallies.
Yeah.
What will suck is if your 4 purchases do not roll over. That
Yeah.
will suck, and
Well,
people
and
will
I'm
complain
pretty
about
sure
that.
that was asked in the creator chat, and I'm pretty sure we got an
Was it?
answer saying
I missed that.
it was either that
Okay.
or somebody posted a picture on the from one of the Discord threads from the
The
devs
team answers.
saying
Yeah.
that it will roll over.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
again, I
I
think
hadn't
that
seen
makes
that,
it
so
even better with it kind of
yeah.
rolling over. But yeah,
Woohoo.
so
Especially in the beginning. I think that's important. But
yeah,
so
absolutely,
s- speaking of rolling over, High Evo rolled over this week.
it's true. That's true.
I didn't play dead, but just played possum, where people kind of got scared with it. And we're going to briefly touch on a couple of the card updates real fast because, yes, they've been out for a couple of days now. So there's only a few, I think, that I really want to talk about because I'm shocked, to be
Just
completely honest.
FYI,
You know, I said it last week.
FYI, my OBS just like not responding. All right, may want to start that whole thing over. As I was hiding the screen,
Yeah.
it said
Good job.
no.
Gotcha. So,
Speaking of high
yeah.
evolutionary,
Yeah.
rolling over.
Speaking of high evolutionary, looking at the evolved cards and the patch notes, right?
Yeah.
We saw the changes that I honestly didn't. I called it last week that I did not see them updating the evolved cards this week. And they had made this change to go live previously prior to their summer vacation, their little 2-week hiatus,
Yeah.
which they earned. And now the patch goes live and we get the changes to evolved Wasp and Hulk. And I personally am not very happy about it. Not in the sense of, oh my God, they nerfed them, but in the sense of what they did. So Wasp, absolutely on par with what we all kind of thought they would do. Instead of afflicting 2 of the enemy cards, it only hits 1. I could live with that. That's fine. That's evolved enough.
Yeah.
That's good. This specifically brings down the strength of the Lockjaw variation of High Evolutionary. So I think you're going to see a rise of the controlled version. It's the Hulk I don't like. I don't like how they changed him from a ongoing +2 power for each turn with unspent energy to now being just a static ability of when you end a turn with unspent energy, he gets the +2 power still, as long as he's either in play or in your hand. And I don't like this from a counter point of view. And I don't like this just I see what they're trying to do though, where they're playing the RNG play of how early
Yeah.
you draw your Hulk maxes how high he could potentially get. And then on top of it, makes it next to impossible to properly identify from the opponent's side how big their Hulk could probably be. Because, you know, I do it on stream. I do it when I play, where I'm
Yeah.
sitting there going, okay, it's an Evo deck, it's turn 6. What was the play order? So they floated on this turn, floated on this turn, played on curve on this turn, they played on curve on this turn, they floated turn 5. So the max, it's Hulk. Then I knew Hulk was definitely a 6, you know, 18, let's say, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what I'm playing with. Do I have the combinations? Is it going to be under? Am I going to? It throws an indiscrepancy in there from a strategy standpoint, which I can get to a degree
Yeah.
why they did it that way. But I just don't think that taking away the ongoing was the right decision here.
So I think it's one of those things where I'll agree and disagree. I'll agree in the fact that I think the nerf really should have just been +1 and not +2. I think that would have been the better change to Hulk. As far as it going from ongoing to whatever, I've seen some people try to make the case that, well, now we can't use Enchantress. I'm like, Enchantress was not winning you that lane. Like when they threw down a Hulk, like I get it. It's a quote unquote answer, but like Shang-Chi is your answer, and it doesn't matter what type of whatever this is. But I do think it's very strange that they would make this change because they had Echo coming out. So I do think that like Echo would have been a better answer than like an Enchantress, because Echo is like literally you just go, okay, I think they're going to play Hulk here, or I'm going to set it here so Hulk couldn't come down with the ongoing. But I don't know. Like, I think the argument comes down to what level of play that you're going to have. So in your, you know, thought process of you can kind of predict how big the Hulk is based on floating and stuff like that. I do think that is a thing. I do think that was a huge thing when you get into the tournament scene, you get to the high level play, and now you just have to assume Hulk is always the biggest he could possibly be. And again, I think that +2 means that he's too big. So I
agree.
I don't know. It's I'm a little torn.
Hulk should not be making an Infinite jump. Infinite is stronger than Hulk, correct?
Yes.
So there you go. Why is Infinite not stronger than Hulk? But you're so big on lore.
But technically, this is an evolved Hulk. And the high evolutionary wants to make everything perfect. But I will give you, like, I think that when you want to look at how everything's spaced in a gaming world, if Infinite is your mark of biggest card in the game, right? And because he's the biggest card in the game, you literally have to skip a turn. I agree with you 100% that you should not have a card that just says, oh yeah, you saved a little energy, you get to be bigger. Because there's a lot of cards like the high evo cards, like Sunspot, that want you to do that anyway. I mean, She-Hulk, right? Like there's cards that want you to do that. So I would 100% agree with you. I think that the real change he should have got is the +1. These are the two cards we called out that needed to be changed. These are the two cards they changed, which is great. I still think that we're gonna have to see a tweak to the thing, a tweak to Cyclops. Like, we're gonna see a rise of those cards because of these changes.
So then here's the thing. As it says in the bottom of the page that you even have on the screen here, from the notes, it specifically says, we recognize these adjustments may not be as harsh as some players expected, and will continue evaluating, yada, yada. Now, if they choose to just OTA the Hulk, where, as we talked about at length before, they're not going to change his 612 because of the beginning of the game for new players. They're not going to change his 612. Is now the new version of Evolved Hulk, if we go to Evolved 3.0, where they change it to leaving his current static of when you end a turn with unspent energy, get +1 power. If they change it to that, is that too harsh? Or does he need to then go back to an ongoing again?
No, I think honestly, it's one of those things where they've said this before. They want to put in place a card where they have the handles to turn, right? They have where they can tweak the card where they want it. And I think that this was, to your point, it's a first step, because here's the thing. We did have a potential Red Skull play. We did have, not Red Skull, Super Scroll play. We did have a potential Echo play, right? And so I think by tweaking him down to +1, maybe they felt that by going to +1, he would be a little too weak because of Enchantress, Echo, Super Scroll, these cards that can kind of take advantage of that. I mean, I know there was a couple games where Citadel came up, and like when you're throwing a Hulk down on Citadel, I mean, you're not winning that lane. Now he's way bigger than an Infinite could ever be. So like, I think it is one of those things where they made that first change because they know that we'll see how this goes. And worst case, we can tweak this to +1 instead of +2. And it still be strong because you can't change it. You can't modify it with some other new card coming out that removes an ongoing or changes some type of ongoing type thing. So yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think that this change killed Hulk at all, but it's definitely one of those changes that is kind of, good in a way, but I can see it from your perspective. Like, and again, it's not just yours. There's a lot of tournament players that have that same perspective. Not being able to count the floats anymore is difficult, because now you may have counted the float and then you're like, oh, well, he's going to be an 18, and he comes down, he's a 14 because they drew him on turn 5. So, who knows? We'll kind of see with that. And to your point, they may have to touch other cards. They probably will. I'm going to be the cynical person here and say that if they would have literally touched all those cards, you would have had so many people running out saying, I need compensation for that big bat I just bought. So they do have to kind of also trickle these card changes, because it will hurt. Like, even if they make the changes to those 2 other cards, High Evo is still a good card. High Evo still gives you a brand new archetype. The cards are still strong. Like, Wasp is still strong. She's just not OP anymore. And so I think that even with the other tweaks, you end up with strong cards, just not OP cards. And I think that's where they kind of need to get. Just like Galactus is a strong card, I would still say he's not OP because he's very predictable within his play pattern. But they're doing a great job in kind of balancing that. And speaking of imbalances,
they're finding the opportunities and they're addressing them. And Gambit has a double-edged little piece to him, which I loved. Which is, not only did they change Gambit's power and gave him a good 3/3 base stat line. Now they gave him 2 extra power, but the more important change that they snuck in there was now must actually discard a card to destroy anything. Which is what you wanted, and you talked about here on this podcast as well.
It's so, and the reason why I say it, because there's going to be people like, oh, but this killed Exodia. It's like, it didn't. Trust me. When I started playing this game, and I found Exodia, I think I saw maybe Binks or somebody show it off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to play that deck, because you have to have 6 cards, combo to do whatever. And I thought you had to discard a card. Coming from Magic, I got to throw it out every podcast. Coming from Magic, coming from other
at least
card games,
once, man.
you would have to, in order to be able to have a trigger on a card, meet the criteria of the trigger. And this is discard a card, destroy another card. And so when I started, I was playing decks with Swarm in it. So all my Exodia decks had Swarm, to where it discarded Swarm. I always had a card to discard. You could do it with Apocalypse too, but essentially always having a card to discard to blow up the board. And I honestly think that this makes Exodia strong, but it makes it different in a way that I like it. So now you have this play pattern where you can add 2 different cards that can make this deck potentially even better. So think about this, right? And I mentioned Swarm. So having Swarm now in your deck, now you can tuck a Collector in your deck, because, typically for this deck, you're either going to play Zabu on 2 or Psylocke on 2 in order to speed up your Wong. But if you don't, having a Collector down when you start discarding those swarms, even if you do it 4 or 5 times, like that collector's pretty big. Another play pattern is now you can put Dracula in there, and maybe Dracula plus Apocalypse is your win con. So now you're discarding everything. Apocalypse gets huge. You're blowing up the board, and then Dracula, discards Apocalypse. It's going to be different. It's going to make the deck feel a little different. It means you have to have one more card in the combo, but if you're going to blow up an entire board, you should have to have a whole bunch of cards to do this anyway. So I love the change. I really think based on the original wording, this is how it should have worked. So I'm glad that they made this change.
I agree. I think it's pretty obvious because of just how the text reads. It's condition. It's not on reveal blank as well as on reveal blank. It's not 2 on reveals.
Right.
It's a continuous on reveal. If an on reveal has the ability to proc, it should. But it didn't have condition A. Why does it still meet condition B? Yeah. So you're 100% right there. I don't think it ruins Gambit. I think it just reinforces how Gambit was supposed to be played.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
And I like him just in a random deck as well now, because I saw Lammy post up like a Surfer deck, I think, and he has Ghost Rider. So he has Ghost Rider as another card in there to where you Gambit, and as long as you don't hit your Ghost Rider, you get the card back later anyway. And it's a cool little combo. So like I like how he is. I like the extra 2 power. So now he doesn't feel like originally as a 3/1, if you hit one of their bad cards, it felt bad. Now, even if I hit like a 1/2, that's a 5 power swing. I'm okay with it. Like, yes, I discarded something, but I feel a little bit better about it. So I like Gambit at this. I think he's still going to find the decks he's in, the discard decks, the Exodia decks. It's just going to make you work a little bit harder if you want to literally wipe the board like he was doing before.
I think Gambit's a great card now, and I think people will. I think we see a rise in Exodia play. To be completely honest, like discard Exodia specifically, I think we see a decent rise in that again.
Yeah. So we had some other cards. We had Mystique get a change here. I think this was kind of hinted at a long time ago, if I recall, on the fact that when she copies, she was only copying that ongoing, right? But she wasn't getting the rest of the card. And we've seen some other cards kind of get both pieces or whatever. So this is cool. So now it's very, very small. Electro's the card that they gave the example to. I honestly, off the top of my head, can't think of another one, but I really haven't looked. But the fact is she's going to get both pieces.
The Soul Stone.
Okay. Yeah. So she's going to get both pieces.
Triggers the on reveal and the ongoing if she absorbs the ongoing of another card.
Yeah.
Because it copies the full text.
Yeah.
It's just a little change.
Flavor-wise,
it's not a game-changing change, but it's a change nevertheless. So just keep an eye on it. If you do play, for some reason, Mystique ongoing Thanos, sure, have fun. Be free.
Yeah.
You do you.
Because I was trying to think of like Electro, and I'm like, it's not really going to help unless somehow you got Electro on 2. Like, because like the whole thing of getting the 1 extra energy, if you played him on 3, on 4, you'd be playing your 5 already. So if you play her, then on 5, you can play a 7, but you can still only play 1 card. So like, it was, I guess the stones are kind of the biggest bonus in a way. But even with that, it's like, a 3/0, hey, you get a new card. So, and you get a soul stone. I don't know. So anyway,
exactly.
I guess it was needed just for
consistency with absorbing man. Yeah. But then the sleeper of the group, who I love that they've brought her again into the limelight, is Nakia. They brought her now. This is her second change. They've now brought her to a 3/3, gave her a little extra power, but the on reveal of giving every card in your hand +1 power, I think is being slept on as incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. I love this change to Nakia. I think that this, if you think about it, for example, right? You're looking to play her on curve. So you're looking to play her on turn 3, which means at most you have 5 cards in your hand by the
Yeah.
time you're playing her down, if I remember correctly. By the time you actually discard her out, because you start with 4, play nothing. Turn 2, play nothing. You have 5. Turn 3, you have 6. Play down Nakia. That means 5 cards are in your hand, most
Yeah.
likely, on average, unless there's a weird condition. But yeah, that's basically a maximum of 3/8. If you're playing something like a zoo deck,
Yeah.
Nakia is a huge boost to that deck, for example, now versus a
Yeah.
kind of boost for 2 cards.
It's
So I really like this.
it's also potential. Like I know people are playing her in Surfer right now because you can play her on 3 and give your Brood +1, which is technically +3.
Yep.
There's a couple parts there. I think Bounce is also an interesting place where you like play Bast on 1 and then you play her on 3, and now all your like little people, like you think of Hit Monkey, Angela, it can almost be like, all right, I don't have to play them this turn, right? And maybe not Angela, you probably play Angela, but there's
Yeah.
these cards where like now you're giving that extra 1. You could maybe even bounce her on 4 with Beast. So like Nakia hitting, your Kitty and then putting Kitty in the same lane as her with, Beast to pick her up. Like that's even going to be pretty good. So I think there's a lot more play patterns with her because originally making sure it was your 2 leftmost cards, which I could see, like, I don't see Shocker changing because Shocker has that weird, like it's these 2 cards, but it makes it a little bit easier to play, especially for just an average player.
Yeah. I think Bounce is an interesting call because imagine then also as a second play, Nakia on 3, Beast, then Nakia on 4, bring her back, play her on 5 again, give more
Mhm.
reinforcement. Like
Yeah.
that might be something I build. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about the bounce
I think
ramifications.
I think she takes the place of Bishop, to be honest. Like you have this Bishop play, but if you look at
Ooh,
Bishop, like he's decent, but unless you have the Mysterio, Hit Monkey, whatever turn 6, Bishop kind of ends up being this meh card. But the fact that Nakia, even though she's not as a single card, not going to get higher than Bishop, the pluses
Oh,
she's going to
everything
hand
else?
out, right? The pluses she's going to hand out could be way, way bigger than your Bishop would have ever got. So that's where like I've started to, I haven't played it yet, but I've started to kind of tinker with it a little bit. And that's kind of where my mind went. I think a lot of people went to Surfer because she's a 3 with Jean and stuff like that. But I think there's a bounce variation because she does end up being a 2 after you bounce her on Beast. So it gives you a strong turn 5 play into that big Hit Monkey, which now at a minimum is already a 2. And if you bast it on turn 1, now he's a 5 coming down plus all the other stuff. It can be pretty big. And then Mysterio, same thing. Bast would have changed all your Mysterios to 3. Nakia would have made them all now 4. Second Nakia would have made them all 5. So now Mysterio's a 15 for 2 plus your Hit Monkey's a 5 plus, at a minimum just with those 2 cards, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now you're getting 26 power out of 4 energy, 2 cards over 3 different lanes. So like, yeah, it's there's some nastiness that can happen there. Again, we're all in Christmas land here.
Yeah.
Playing those cards, but
Yeah.
it
This is true.
happens.
Good Christmas land. Good
Yeah.
Christmas land, but it's true. Like Nakia now has a lot of viability. And considering that they didn't touch bounce
Yeah.
yet, let's make that clear. Yet, because it's very clear that they're going to want to. It's just a matter of how or when, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Because they will. Just be ready, people. They will touch it.
Yeah.
Just give it time. Because it's going to be, man, that's going to be absolutely vicious. Like, I think Nakia, I'm just debating now in bounce, like, oh man, do you play the Sarah version? Because you're trying to play Sarah on 5, but you need to play Nakia on 5 on getting that full bounce. Oh man.
If you're playing,
so good.
Like in my opinion, this is my opinion. If you're playing Beast, you don't want Sarah. Because with Beast, you're making a lot of your cards be 0 and 1 anyway, going into it. So maybe if you're playing some other style, but I just feel like taking turn 5 off rather than playing Kitty is a big thing, right? And I guess technically if you've beasted Kitty already, she's 0, but like I don't know. I run into the fact that if you're playing her on 5, you're actually losing a space, and it's detrimental in my opinion on 6 because it's the minimum of 1. A lot of your cards at that point are already 2 or 1, so I don't know, and there's only so much space on the board. I just don't know if it's that great. Again, I haven't played with Sarah in a while in a bounce deck, and I don't really plan to. So
I don't either.
I'll be honest.
And then they put just, tweaked the verbiage on a bunch of cards. Nothing too crazy. They didn't change any mechanics. They just tried to make it clearer for the trolls. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
The people that say, hey, but wait, it actually says this here instead. No, it's just the card mechanic is the same. But if you're going to read it all different kind of askew, then you know what? Just do me a favor here. Let's just clear it here. Clear this here. Bucky and Cerebro and Black Cat and all these other cards. Like nothing changed with every other card listed. So I don't think there's too much to need to talk about there. But
and
it's just one of those things.
Like you said, with these cards, it may also be they have upcoming cards, and they will just want to just make it super clear that with the upcoming cards, this is not going to work like you thought it was going to work. And yeah, so again, like even with Doctor Strange is right there with the highest power card, like they're making sure people go, well, these 2 are my highest. It's like, well, no, this is your highest. So like it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So nothing too crazy. But all in all, I mean, I think that the changes they put in place are great. I still think every week I say this, but I still think Snap in general is in a good spot. Yes, bounce is a little too much, so I'm sure we'll see OTA at some point. But I mean, the Nimrod, whatever decks and things like that are still doing great out there, which kind of leads us into the deck of the week, man. So what are you bringing us as your deck of the week?
Destroy is everywhere for some reason, again. And I'm totally about it because I think it's a really fun archetype. Clearly, it's on Second Dinner's agenda to be a fun and strong archetype. They keep tweaking the Destroy cards regularly, and Destroy is right now, in my opinion, meta relevant. It's finally in a very healthy place, adding, a little power here to Venom, a little power here to Nimrod, change this mechanic. Like it's in a very healthy place. And I'm just bringing up a pretty solid Destroy deck with Nimrod because I think Nimrod should be in most Destroy decks at this point. It's Hood, Deadpool, Nova, Bucky Barnes, Carnage, Killmonger, Venom, Deathlock, Nimrod, Arnim Zola, Null, and Death. And this version focuses on the reduction with Death and Deadpool, with Nimrod being the 3rd win condition versus some of the other variations, which makes Nimrod more of a priority play. I know you're a fan of the Shuri variation, for example, which is a great version too. It's personal play pattern. And this one's, in my opinion, a little bit easier to run as you're playing all 4 of your Destroy cards, Carnage, Killmonger, Venom, and Deathlock. And because Deadpool has a lot of easy rotation out of it, I mean, you could even plop in Taskmaster with this deck and take out something like Null if you don't have Null, for example, or Nimrod for the same reasons. You have a couple of different ways you could play this style of Destroy deck with Deadpool, but for me, Death and Deadpool is the primary win condition, which is what I love with this deck. And it's just a fun staple deck to go back to because, even the players who play for 10, 20, 30, 40 hours a week that love this game or create content on this game or just, it's their bread and butter, whatever it is, like, you always end up going back to Destroy at some point. Always. It's a good way to shake it up.
And I think that they always release a card that changes the way the Destroy decks work. So like, for instance, we have, I'll mention the card I really love with this Nimrod package is Shuri, because with Shuri coming down to make Nimrod from a 6 to a 12. And if you guys don't know, there's some like really cool stuff you can do with the deck. So the idea is you, and again, this is one of the decks I've been running for months now. Shuri into Nimrod, and then on turn 6 using 2 kills. So using like Venom on once, or using Carnage first in whatever spot he's in, so that you get to bump that up. It makes the Nimrods in the 2 other areas. Then you use Venom to eat that particular Nimrod. So now you don't lose power in that lane, but then you shoot 2 more Nimrods over. So now, you've got 2 Nimrods in maybe the middle lane, plus you've got the Nimrod plus the Carnage or whatever in the other lane. Again, you can flip flop how those are. I've seen some even cooler stuff, which is even harder to pull off, where they have like Invisible Woman in a 3rd lane, and they've put Deathlock underneath it. So like now at the end of the game, you get another Nimrod destroy to shoot him around. Like it's a really cool thing. But I also saw things like Bast. So like when you look at Deadpool, and again, I think that the fun part about Destroy is you have a lot of finishers. So Nimrod, like you mentioned, is a really great finisher. Deadpool's a really great finisher. So seeing something like a Bast on turn 1 to now make, your Deadpool 3. So he's going from 3 to 6 on his first kill, not 1 to 2, is another really cool way of doing it. Personally in the deck, I like what you have. I think Null is a little overkill. I like Death because Death tends to be underneath 6. So she tends to be 5, 4, somewhere around in there. So you can play your Deadpool you killed on turn 5. Null is a good card. I've seen him win a lot of games, but I would say like that's one of those where that's your turn 6 play. So unless you've been killing big stuff, or they've been killing big stuff, Null tends to not come down a lot. And again, Armanzola is always a good one. When you kill your Nimrod and you get 2 Nimrods on the other lanes, because
exactly.
He kills himself plus adds. Armin is always a good call there. So yeah, I like the Destroy decks. They're hard to really counter. You just have to like be bigger than them. Like, yeah, Cosmo can mess you up, Armor can mess you up, but like most games, we haven't really seen Armor in a long time, right? The Shuri decks went away, Armor went away. Cosmo, for some reason, has been away for a while. He's starting to come back a little bit with Surfer and Jean, but he's still kind of, MIA at the moment. So like the deck just works. And, in your deck, the only upside, I guess, is you don't have too many cards that can be hit by Shadow King. So you got Venom, you've got your Carnage and your Deadpool, but for the most part, they're having to pick a lane to use.
I love that we're seeing a rise in him though, Shadow King. Yeah. That makes me happy because
and that's
people are realizing how strong he is finally.
Literally, I played the other day in Conquest. I think I was going for a gold ticket or something, because this season Conquest to me has been more of a joke, like 2+ minute queues and things like that. We'll see what that looks like in a couple weeks, but I had somebody bouncing Kitty Pryde in Shuri's lab, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get them on turn 5 because they have priority, because they had an Angela over there and something like that. I'm like, I'm gonna give them priority. Turn 5, they played Kitty Pryde there. I played my Shadow King. Their Angela went back to 0. Their Kitty Pryde went to 0, which means it's going to be a 2 on the next turn. Because I was like, there's no way I'm going to catch it on turn 6 because I don't know where he's playing it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm going to catch it on turn 5. I did that. He immediately just conceded the whole match. Like, he was already down a little bit, but like, he had a few cubes left, but he was just like, nah, I'm done. Like, and I was like, yeah, that felt so good.
One of those. And okay, thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
I forfeit. I bow.
It's better. Yeah. It's better than the Killmonger kill. Like, I mean, the Killmonger hidden like under Invisible Woman or in Dark Dimension or something's also great, but like to make it go back down to a 0 just feels so much better than killing it.
No, this is fair. This is completely fair. I think Destroy is just one of the most fun archetypes without the toxicity of Galactus necessarily. So just standard, classic, base Destroy. There are so many different versions of it that you can start adventuring really into in Series 3, especially once you get Deadpool. Absolutely. And then if you happen to use your Spotlight caches appropriately and you get somebody like a Null or a Nimrod that you can sprinkle on in there too, I think Destroy is just one of those constant, steady archetypes that it's real easy to come back to.
Yep.
In my opinion, just real easy to constantly come back to. So, this has been a crazy week, a really good week,
Yeah.
but a crazy week for Marvel Snap, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen now that starting this weekend, the tournament scene now is going to be able to see the reflection of these changes.
Yeah.
Will Jean Grey make an appearance? Will we be seeing nothing but solid bounce? What's going to be the surprise card over the next, we've got 2 battle arenas and back-to-back weekends coming up. Then we've got the Snap.fan open as I stumble the name because I'm just tired. Stumble over the name of our own damn tournament.
Yeah.
The Snap.fan open at the end of the month. Lots of cool things to keep an eye on, and keep an eye on the articles because Tori's been putting out great recaps looking at the meta changes. We've got even more coming out. I've got articles from Bradsford looking at the meta coming. Equinox is coming on down also with deck building articles on how to strategize when you're building for different things. Like, I got a lot of cool content to ingest over the next few weeks, both from a tournament side as well as just the little changes that are coming in Marvel Snap. This was a really successful week this week. And I know you've been away, but once you're back in your routine this week, with live streaming and everything, tell us, Default Dan, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So if you want to find us, usually live on Mondays doing this, we've got twitch.tv/defaultdan. We've got the YouTube, which hopefully we'll get some content over there pretty soon, youtube.com/defaultdan. But like you said, it's finding the time to do everything. It's rough. But if you want to hang out with us on Wednesdays, you can do that over on twitch.tv/snap.fan. So all spelled out, one word, snap.fan. As well as the end of the month, we'll have the big open where we'll be streaming the whole thing. So if you want to hang out with us over there, if you want to participate, definitely check that out. Go over to the Discord, find all the links, all that good stuff. Because there's always some free money floating around when it comes to these tournaments. So see how you can do, try to get your points for the season so that you can maybe work your way up into the invitational. So it's gonna be fun, man. I'm excited about everything that's happening, and hopefully Second Dinner is also paying attention to this tournament scene, and maybe we'll get some updates in the near future around that kind of stuff. So.
Nudge,
Hopefully.
nudge.
Hopefully.
Come on, Second Dinner. Come on.
Help us out. Yes. Help us out.
Please, streamer, spectator mode, all that fun stuff. Bring it on.
Yep.
And as for myself, for those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. You could find me on my Twitch channel at the same name. YouTube, Snap.fan, Twitter, Threads, Discord, you name it. It's all the same name. You could probably find me on it. I've been very busy on the Snap.fan Twitter and Threads pages as well, so keep an eye on those. Threads is something that I'm just trying to get better at, transitioning away from Twitter personally. We'll get there. I try to post on both things, but it doesn't mean I do. But just like you on YouTube, things happen, life happens, changes happen. But we appreciate y'all hanging out with us again for this, hey, we're back episode of the Snapback podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Default Dan, say goodbye to the lovely people.
Y'all take it easy.
Don't hit the end record button. You did it last week and I had almost no outro. I need you to hold on because I'm sitting here going, do I shorten the music? Because I love you, man, but I forget the theming. There's an outro where I make fun of you, just like I did for not doing it on the last podcast. So I appreciate it. And this is now where I tell you, okay, you're clear.